Gomede at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Good afternoon, Arabile. Over to you.
Yeah, good afternoon, Zinga. Well, it has been an interesting day, hasn't it? The rand sitting at around, what's it now, 13.18 or so against the US dollar. The euro at 15.52 or so, 15.53 perhaps, 17.64. Some movement there really happening, a little bit of weakness coming through with regards to the rand. But let's remember that a lot of that does stem, of course, from the Fed in the USA, the FOMC in particular. And of course, the Eurozone will also be having their central bank meeting as well. So we are seeing a lot of movement stemming from the likes of them, and of course just that Trump and Kim summit happening in Singapore. That has certainly set the market alight. Whether we are much ado about nothing here may actually be of keen interest. It was successful, but certainly whether it made any meaningful impact is going to be a question mark for all. But despite that, let's take a look at how the European and local markets are faring. Well, just a quick look as well at your Bitcoin as well. It's at $6,846. That's for one Bitcoin. And in South African rands, it'll cost you 94,499 rand as well. It is down around 60% just this year alone, or rather just from December, shall I say, from that all-time high as well. But let's take a look at how the markets are faring from IGSA. I'm joined by Travis Robson. Travis, thank you so much for the time. The big talking point will certainly be Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un meeting, of course. It says a lot for trade, but does it really say a lot for the markets?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I think there's still a lot to be ironed out. We haven't seen the full terms. A lot of talk in the market saying that Trump gave up his US rock war games, and Kim hasn't given up anything. And this is obviously to try preempt any form of or try stop this nuclear progress that's happening from their side. I do think it's a positive step forward for the US. US North Korea relations will be positive. I do think it also stops any further any further non-peace talks in the Korean Peninsula area. I also think it's very good for, from a nuclear point of view. Yeah. But I still think we haven't really ironed out all the terms and conditions, and I think that will come in the next couple of days. Yeah,
as you said, details not ironed out to themselves, but having seen something like this happen, it means that as well that the cooperation and the intensity of discussion perhaps might increase in future, which may then mean that there's a lot more happening between the two countries, which could bode well for international trade, but also could mean that what shall we say, the liquidity or perhaps the instabilities might happen a little bit more. Do you see that happening?
Yeah, definitely. There was talk from the Russian president coming in saying that he wants to get involved in further talks with North Korea and look at synergies for business as well. So you're going to get the knock-on effect. You're going to get of other nations coming involved and supporting this. Obviously, we have to look at what happened at the G7 summit. Yep. It wasn't Trump's finest hour. He came out on Twitter afterwards and had some scathing remarks against the Canadian Prime Minister, and that's a lot to do with the trade wars that's beginning against Mexico and China and also Canada as well. So, we just need to see what happens with the news and what comes out of it. For now, it is a positive start, but this is something that's been going on for many, many years, and I think we still need to iron out the T's and C's, so to speak.
That, and of course the central bank meetings happening this year, one would say that it's probably the most important week of the year considering just the amount of things that are happening. Where do you see the Fed? Do they continue their gradual rise in interest rates?
It very much looks like it. We're coming from a 2015 tapering into a more adverse interest rate rising process. We're expecting 25 basis points to be the figure. It is very much priced in the market. You can see that's been pushing the dollar as well. So we're seeing a bit of dollar-denominated buying from investors. So as long as it remains 25 basis points, I don't think we're going to have any shakes on the market. Within the other central bank discussions, we've got ECB. I think it's more, there's no expectations of any change on their rates, but it's more the forward guidance on what they propose to do. And then we've also got Bank of Japan coming out on Friday morning, and they've got a negative interest rate there, I think minus 0.1. No expected change there. So in the ECB announcement and also Bank of Japan announcement, it's more going to be look at the nuances, look at the keywords, look at the forward guidances. In the US, it's very much priced in 25 basis points. This does look like the trajectory that the US is going to go, and we may see further interest rate rises in the future, which will mean further buying of the US dollar, and therefore affecting the rand and other emerging market currencies.
Rand weakening, impacting as well a lot of what the South African Reserve Bank might want to do, considering that the rest of the world may be going on this upward trajectory. Does it put pressure on them to hike?
It's never done in the past, so we're just going to have to see that everybody looks at the consumer pricing numbers, looks where the retail stability is, looks at the GDP numbers in South Africa. Every single economy will look at those numbers, and I think we'll take guidance from that. In the US, they're looking at the CPI numbers later this afternoon, which are expected to come in around 2.7, and that could give guidance to see if there's going to be a hike. Very much assume there is going to be.
Sure.
So coming back to South Africa, I don't think the SAB is going to look at and see a hike in the States and a hike in South Africa. I think there's a lot of news, and we've got political stability finally. We just need to look at our consumer numbers, look at our GDP numbers. Our growth's not that great, and maybe these will be the factors that the SAB will look at, but I don't think they're going to leverage very much off the US.
Yeah. In terms of local data as well, having affected the South African rand to hit now around 13, 17 or so. We've had everything from retail, mining, manufacturing, all that sort of data, not really looking as good as it should. Is that one of the factors really affecting the South African rand going lower, or is it purely just international factors right now?
I think it's very much underpinned by this dollar. Obviously, we've had Ramaphosa at the G7 summit, and he did invoke a bit of positiveness for investments in South Africa, so that's really key. That will help stabilize the rand. But I do think the rand is very much fluctuating on strong dollar, as we've seen over from the G7 and what we've seen into this week. You've got to expect the US investors or looking for safe haven buying when you got Trump going into a meeting with Kim. That's natural. We may see the US markets open up a little bit stronger now, and the dollar peg off a little bit. In terms of company news affecting our markets, our rand, we had some key company news. We had Vodacom out. We've had we've had Braid come out. We've had Sanlam come out. We've had a couple of other headline news items that come out. Nothing massive. It is our earnings season. We've got other big companies coming out later in this week. We've had previously. All of them are guiding to subdued results, difficult trading periods. I know Braid's one's quite interesting. They've got a headline loss of 16 cents per share, following on a 28 cents per share loss previously. That has to do with a lot with the new look business. But so some interesting company news. However, I don't think that's a major impact on the rand. I do think it's linked more to the dollar and what's happening in the political world itself.
Travis Robson from IGSA, thank you so much for joining us in studio. 58,192 or so points for the JSE All-Share this afternoon. The resources stocks seem to be the ones greatly negative. They're down 0.75%, sitting at 42,221. How the markets fare for the remainder of the day is going to be an interesting one, but it does seem like a green day overall. We'll get back to Nompu and Nzinga right after this.